Alrighty, we are good to go. Welcome back to the Movie of Well Marathon, the actual
Woo!
official ending of our Halloween
Yeah,
spooky marathon. Even though we
you
said
thought you knew what we were doing,
you
but you
didn't,
can't figure us
you
out,
never
man.
know. I'm Andrew, and that's
I'm Matt.
yeah, that's Mac. So if you haven't been able to put it together yet with this marathon, we recorded the second episode first, the first episode second, and the last one last. So we got that one right.
Ooh.
Um, but yeah, it's this has been a journey. Um, but I thought this was a perfect transition for the seasons. So yeah, we're doing Nightmare Before Christmas. Woohoo!
Woo.
Directed by, I imagine to many people's surprise still, not Tim Burton. It is Henry Selick. Came out in 1993. Good lord. But the whole thing is like it's
I
a
didn't realize it was older than us.
oh yeah. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's like based on a poem that Tim Burton wrote. It's very Tim Burton style, so I thought it went well with Beetlejuice and all that. So it is a classic. Tis a whale. But what are
Yeah,
your?
we're
It's
communicating
just
with that. Like, we don't need to cause
yeah.
me
I
fight
mean,
here.
like seriously, I was watching it and I was trying to like look at it critically, and I was like, how the fuck are you supposed to look at this critically? It's just, it's Halloween monsters that steal Christmas.
Yeah,
A plus. Like I'm in it. It's wonderful. But I mean, we'll have time to talk about some flaws here or there or general thoughts. I'm happy to let you get into yours, of course. So yeah, what do you
I
think?
mean, this movie is weird because I
Duh.
understand like its charm really well because like the quirkiness is fun, the music is pretty good. Like, there's the things that they do with the characters are so unique that it's interesting and you buy in pretty quickly because you're like, this is something I've never seen before, right? And the art
Mm-hmm.
style is cool. And I love the way that they use the world they're in, like, maybe simply because it is sort of like a physical medium, but the characters are very interactive with their environment and just sort of like, Sally sews herself together a lot, like,
Mm-hmm.
there's just they actually use the logic, it's not just like an overlaid aesthetic on the world, so I like that quite a bit. Um, I I find the story itself to be kind of baffling,
Oh, for
and I have
sure.
to just sort of, like, give it a pass because 'cause I'm
Uh
like,
huh.
"It's a fun movie for
Yes,
kids.
there is a lot of
Mostly
that.
for kids."
There's a
Like,
lot of that in this. It's like, hey, don't think about it. It's not the kind of movie.
yeah,
Not the kind of movie.
yeah,
Don't think about it. Yeah, for sure. Because if you spend any time thinking about it, what's behind the Thanksgiving door? What is in the
I mean,
Thanksgiving
mine
world?
was even more direct, like, clearly Jack the Pumpkin King is in charge. Why do we have a mayor?
Well, that's I mean they joke about that in the movie itself. Like the mayor doesn't even do
They do.
anything. Like,
Yeah.
he's a politician. He's useless. My thing, oh, sorry, that I wondered about even when I was little. How does he get back from Christmas Town? Because
Yeah, no, he doesn't, because he fell, like, he
yeah,
fell in the
he
glass.
falls into that realm, and then he must just wander around aimlessly until he finds another patch of trees. Like they don't talk about that at all. They yada yada right over that. But then
Mm.
Santa Claus, comes and goes because he's magical and whatnot. And then to get back to Halloween Town, at the end of the movie, Jack just goes through a mausoleum door. So like you don't think about it. Not that kind of movie. Not that kind of movie. It's fine. It's whatever.
Mhm. Mhm.
But like just agreeing with what you said, I typically hate musicals. I think the music in this is fantastic. All the songs are great, very fun. Danny Elfman does all the singing for Jack, which I think for one great, but I also never noticed like as a kid. Like he sounds just like
Mm.
the guy who plays Jack. I love the
It is pretty
opening.
close.
I love Jack's laminate. I love what's this? I think it's wonderful and very sweet and whimsical. And then what's not making Christmas, but when Jack is trying to figure out what Christmas is, like when he's in his own home and he's like doing his experiments. Like I can't remember
Mhm.
what the name of the song is, but I think they're all wonderful.
Yeah, I find, as weird as it is, I find Jack's genuine wonder and interest to be really engaging.
Hmm.
Um,
It's a mid-death crisis.
yeah. I mean, like, and like, I totally understand like where they're going with the story in terms of like he's been doing Halloween for a long time. He's always done a good job at it. It's starting to get a little bit boring. He finds something new. He's like, I can do this instead. And to the movie's credit, it took him longer to come to the conclusion that he should essentially steal Christmas. Um, it took him longer to come to that conclusion than I remembered. The way I remembered it, it was like he landed in Christmas land and he was like, I am
Mine.
taking all of and that's not really how it goes down because he ends up spending like a good section of the movie in the middle there thinking about like how he's supposed to understand this, how he's supposed to make his people understand this. He's like, this is a really cool thing and I want everyone to appreciate it.
Hmm.
I know. We can just do it. We can just, perform Christmas for everybody and that'll be great. Um, Huge leap of logic there. If you don't understand something, what makes you think you can pull it off?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it's one of those things. We're Americans. We don't think, we do. Like maybe that's the logic here.
I was sitting there, I was like, this is a bad idea, but okay. And then also the idea that like Sally just gets premonitions.
Yeah,
And that's
that's one of those things that I don't get, but don't think about. That's just a thing she can
Mhm.
do for some reason.
Things you can do. Feels like you could have worked that into the movie earlier at some point, but that's fine.
Yeah,
It's
because she
cool. It's
doesn't get like
totally
any
valid.
other visions. That's just the one.
No.
She
Hmm.
just does
She's
that.
like very convinced that like the one vision that she had
Yeah,
is like
yeah.
legit.
She's a Frankenstein scarecrow that gets visions. Whatever.
Who also is like a poisoner, and I really thought that would come in handy at some point, and it never did.
It's just kind of for fun.
Yeah, they're like, she sneaks out by poisoning her pseudo dad.
Yeah. Why do you have that, dude? Like,
I,
don't. I mean, maybe she's just hiding it, but like, then don't label the jar, Sally. Come on now.
yeah.
Don't do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, she's poisoned you multiple times. We open the movie with the establishing idea that like she sneaks out constantly by
Mm-hmm.
poisoning you. And then like even the one time we see him consume something we know she's poisoned, he picks up on it right away.
Mm-hmm.
But he like after she drinks it, he dives
Right.
right in. Like full
That's
hog.
speaking of that. When I was a child, a little wee babby, I thought the holes in the spoon was like the epitome of clever. I was like, oh yeah, you got him, Sally. Oh, that's good. So clever. Ha ha ha. And then of course, I turned 6, and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty straightforward. That's pretty basic. Then it bothered me
Not like you have to like really angle the bowl so that you don't see the
that.
soup
Well, I was gonna say
falling.
that. Then it always bugs me that he's below her eye line, looking up at her, and doesn't notice the holes in the spoon. Not the kind of movie. Not the kind of movie. But yeah, that's one of those things that I always found little. Let's talk about the good things. I like the visual aesthetic of this movie. I like the spooky stuff.
Yeah.
The character design honestly is incredible. I really, 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 really do like it. The
It
weird
is quite
vampires
good.
and the twisty head mare and the clown with the tearaway face, all of it. It's fantastic.
And I like that it feels like there are classic Halloween elements to it, but none of it feels super like cut and paste.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's cool. I mean, it's even like Oogie Boogie. Like I've never seen that kind of monster before, but it still
Yeah.
uses like the signatures of
Hmm.
like Halloween style. It's like it's kind of homespun, like a harvest thing. It's got like a burlap sack situation. There's like obvious stitching. It's
Yeah.
got spiders. I've never seen that monster before, but I have seen the elements of that monster before. So
Hmm.
it's a pretty well designed film. I think
Yeah.
everything is really
I
interesting.
I feel the same way about the fingers like snakes and spiders in his hair. I always want more of him because that's such a cool monster. I find that fun, and he doesn't really get to do anything. But I like that guy. He's a hoot.
The song is great too. I think people know that, but
Yeah.
yeah, Oogie Boogie song is great.
I think I was looking at that song specifically because I was in the mindset of being critical and trying to evaluate, and I was like, this is so amazing as like an opener, as an intro to this world, as a music number, like all of it. It's just so cool to move through the town and go from monster to monster, and to like the I am the Who when you call who's there. Oh,
Mhm.
oh, that's good. I like that's genuinely creepy. Like I like that. Ah, yeah.
Yeah, I think the music is very effective. I'm also like I'm not usually a big fan of when music tries to be like edgy or unexpected when the lyrics like break a rhyme scheme or something. Like you expect a rhyme and then it does something else and like or like it
Mm-hmm.
changes rhythm in the middle of a line or something. I'm not usually a big fan of that. It works really well for this film. Like, the
Mm-hmm.
fact that things are constantly sort of, like, shifting and changing or not what you expect, it delivers on, like, the quirkiness and the sort of, like, spookiness of this film while still maintaining the charm because most of the time it does close out that rhyme, it's just not when you expected it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really like, I don't usually like that sort of thing, but I feel like it works extremely well in this film. It almost is the thing that kinda sets the tone alongside the art and the establishing song, like, it's very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I don't even know if I could look at the songs that critically. I don't have the same kind of music knowledge you do. So I'm happy you're here to offer that because I'm just like they're fun and I like them.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know a lot about music, I just
You know
pay
more than I
attention
do.
to it and maybe. It's I don't know, I don't I don't know how to say this without sounding super critical. This is never gonna be my favorite film, and
Mm-hmm.
it's never really gonna be, like, my favorite musical or anything. I think it just doesn't really vibe with me,
Mm-hmm.
but I will say there is obviously a ton of, like, art that goes into this, and it
Mm-hmm.
like, I resonate really strongly with, like, stories, and I feel like the story in this one is a little bit wobbly, but I can tell how much detail and interest went into creating the world and the
Mm-hmm.
music, and it is a very effective, like, piece of art, I think, which is why it's been so established in, like, the pop culture canon. Um, it's you see something from this film or you hear something from this film, and you immediately know what it is, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I'm on the bandwagon. This is definitely gonna be like one of my favorites, like forever. I enjoy 90% of it. I think it's a fun ride every time. I think it's a holiday classic. And yeah, I mean my the only thing I don't really like about this is kind of the Oogie Boogie part. I agree. I like the design of Oogie Boogie. I like I think I enjoy him as a character. I don't really I don't know. I don't see the big need to have to rescue Santa Claus and Sally and the whole gambling casino thing. I don't really get that. I always find it very climactic and dramatic when Jack gets shot out of the sky, has
Mhm.
his sad song, and realizes, you know what? No, I'm gonna go save Santa. And then I kind of feel like it comes to like a weird halt to go
Mhm.
through the action sequence of fighting Oogie Boogie just to have like the same kind of little conversation between him and Santa and Sally that he would have otherwise. I just don't really feel it being necessary. You know, maybe that's blasphemy or something for Nightmare Before Christmas. I just don't really. I've never loved that sequence.
I think perfect sense. I was not bothered by it because in my mind, so many other things have passed by in the film that are like that.
Mm.
It like there's it doesn't really make sense that Sally can keep sneaking out if her like dad is that upset about it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is hers like? there's this random plot that doesn't really need to be there at all about him making like another
Another creation. Yeah.
yeah.
He's
Yeah,
a little weirdo for sure.
I don't really understand how, like, Jack jumps to the conclusion we talked about this, jumps to the conclusion that he should steal Christmas. I don't really know why kidnapping well, I guess I understand why kidnapping Santa Claus is kind of necessary in terms of
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah, I
but,
get
like,
that.
f the fact that Sally spends, like I don't understand why Sally likes Jack,
That's another thing I
I don't
don't.
understand.
'Cause Jack and Sally are like one of those go-to movie couples that everyone loves, and I'm kind of like, no, because like they there's no love story. There's a mild crush that ends up
Mhm.
resulting in, to be fair, when I'm on the bandwagon, a beautiful little moment at the very end. I just don't think it's earned, you know. But again, it's not that kind of
Yeah,
movie. But it's not earned
yeah.
at all. Like Jack
They
just
have
decides,
very
okay, I
few
like you too.
actual interactions, like,
Yeah.
it's I don't know, it feels like Jack is on one path and Sally's on another, and the only reason they intersect is because she, like, has a crush on him. And on one hand, you can really make that work as a story because sometimes it's like that. Sometimes you are accomplishing something and somebody comes into your life just because they're interested in you, right? Like, that happens.
Mhm.
But I don't know, it doesn't feel especially since she's kind of, like, softly against his whole
I was
plan, and
about
then
to
she's,
say,
like,
yeah.
trying to, like, help him or save him, but she never really like, does she actually do anything to help/save him, or does
Um,
he just kind of
yeah,
figure it out?
technically her actions don't really ever result in anything. She makes the suit
Yeah.
and gives him a dinner and then tries to save Santa Claus and ends up needing to be saved. I do think, on a very shallow level of nuance, it is interesting that their romance comes about because she stands out to him because she was actively trying to prevent him from doing the thing he wanted to do. She doesn't help him beyond making the suit. She does not like that. Nothing she does is like to save him. It's more like to save him from himself. And I will give the movie mild points there that I was like, you know what, Sally, thanks, dog. You were right. I was being stupid, and you were the one trying to keep me honest. You were the only one who was just being real with me the whole time, and I appreciate that. Like the movie is not even that blatant about it,
No,
but
yeah.
I picked up more on it this time, and I will give it credit there that she doesn't roll over for him beyond the one time she does to make the suit.
And that's one thing that has always positively stood out to me about the film is the fact that Sally gets to maintain a contrary stance to Jack, and she is praised for it at the end and not critiqued.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like that quite a bit. I don't know that it was written well.
Oh, yeah,
Like, I like the idea a
yeah.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that it actually had any real influence on what was going on because Jack has to go through everything he's planning on doing before he listens to anybody,
Yeah.
and that's a good character trait. It just means that Sally's advice didn't actually do anything or mean
Right.
anything
Yeah.
because it was ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't know, like, I guess my point was there are so many elements in the plot that feel unnecessary that it doesn't bother me by the time we get to the Oogie Boogie stuff
Oh,
because at
fair
least we
enough.
get a fun musical nor like performance out of it, and we also get like a little bit of like maybe why Jack is actually listened to because this is Halloween Town, and they suggest that there should be some level of violence from a leader of Halloween Town because
Mm-hmm.
there's a threat, right? But the only time we really ever see it and he's being intentionally aggressive is with Oogie Boogie.
Right.
Like
And he's scared of him for a second. He's scared of Jack
yeah,
just for a
yeah.
moment.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. I think there's definitely story elements that don't make a lot of sense or aren't fleshed out enough. But I look at it more of like a sequence. Like I don't think there's a sequence up until the Oogie Boogie moment that doesn't do something. So like
Mm.
Jack deciding to steal Christmas, even though it kind of comes out of nowhere, there's still like the thought process. We see his
Right.
frustration. We see everyone else's concern. The Christmas sequence, duh. The town hall sequence, duh. The opening, sure. His song, sure. The first bit of experimentation, the making Christmas itself, like all of that, and then the little ones having their moment of like deciding how to steal Santa Claus. All of that is leading us somewhere to do something important. The Oogie Boogie action sequence isn't doing anything for anyone about anything. It's just kind of fun, I guess. I just
Yeah.
don't like it as much. Like even if you can argue and probably should that Sally escaping from the house and bringing Jack the lunch, while it in the end it doesn't really like the love story isn't necessarily earned because that's the only real interaction we get beyond Jack giving everyone their assignments. You can still argue it's kind of interesting, and it's just an example of a character in this town doing something. Like she has an interest in him, and he's
It
kind of
establishes character and
yeah,
relationship.
like a little bit, and it's kind of a fun moment where like she sews herself back together, like you said, and it's a little interesting. I don't feel like the movie comes to a weird screeching halt for that sequence the same way I do when we're trying to save Christmas and now Jack has to fight Oogie Boogie, this guy that didn't come into the movie until the very end, for a fight that lasts all of 15, 20 seconds. And I mean, the coolest thing is just watching the bugs disintegrate. Like that's it. I don't really care
Well, and
about the
it
rest of
also
it.
establishes a weird like world building element. Now we're definitely looking too deeply into this,
Uh
but
huh.
um like to have an outcast in Halloween Town is to suggest that there is a level of wrong that the citizens of Halloween Town won't go to, which I could see, right? Like they're all creepy and spooky and kind of violent maybe a little bit, but like
Hmm.
they're not out there. It's not the purge, right?
Right.
Um
But like, what do you have to do to be considered a scary monster
yeah.
and monster? Because like, while Jack is walking away right before his song, the thing that keeps all of the citizens from chasing after him is the mayor saying, "We haven't given out the prizes yet, and the first award goes to the vampires for most blood drained in a single evening." So like, what do you do that makes you a monster amongst monsters when like draining people of blood is nothing?
And I've always interpreted it as maybe he tried to overthrow Jack at some point, and so there it's a little bit
Ooh,
more of like a treason element than it is like any specific level of violence or badness.
interesting.
Um, and they seem to have enough bad blood between the two of them that that would make sense. But like, if that's the case, why wouldn't Jack just kill him?
I know, because he does pretty quickly. Well,
Yeah.
and if you want to
So
be honest, Santa Claus is the one that ends up killing him in the end. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Maybe it just comes down to that first song that even though their job is to scare people, they're not mean. But hey, vampires, I feel like the people that you drained of blood don't feel that way.
yeah, that's pretty mean.
Yeah. Anyway, I love this movie. I do spend a lot of time every holiday season though wondering what the other realms look like. I can't imagine because like so the doors include Christmas, Halloween, Easter, St. Patrick's Day, sure, Green Hills, Pots of Gold, Rainbows, Leprechaun Boy. Thanksgiving, don't know what that's about because there's like are they live turkeys? Is it just pilgrims committing genocide? Like what's behind the door? And then there's a firecracker for probably 4th of July, which
What?
like there's probably a heart for Valentine's Day as well.
Mm,
Um,
mhm.
and I find Thanksgiving and 4th of July to be the weirdest. It's like what realm is that? Like, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, I think the idea was, like, it's about the holidays, right? And
Uh-huh.
I kinda see the angle they were trying to take on that. But what's weird about it is Halloween and Christmas both have, like, an established mythos surrounding them,
Yeah, they do.
creatures, an environment,
And then
and the
Easter
setting,
does. Easter does
and
too.
Easter does too, and I think you had a point about St. Patrick's Day because there's kind of a mythos that goes with that.
You could
It's
argue Valentine's Day
fun.
too, I think, with like a Cupid or a cherub
Mhm,
or something.
mhm.
But yeah, Thanksgiving
Um,
and no, not really.
there's it's not I mean, there's plenty of, like, iconography for it, but there's not like there's a Thanksgiving creature that comes along and
Right. The most notable Thanksgiving creature is the one we eat every year. Like it's not the same. It's just not. I don't know, like you go there and it's like all fall colors and like the sun is a pumpkin pie or something. Like I mean, what is in the
Mhm.
realm of Thanksgiving? It's
I don't know, I
it
feel like
always makes me
you
wonder.
can go to a place and you walk in the place and you're like, "This feels like Christmas," or you can walk into a place and you're like, "This feels like Halloween," or you could do that probably for, like, Valentine's Day. St. Patrick's Day might be a little bit trickier, but you could do it. Maybe you could do that for Thanksgiving too, but it would be harder to do because Thanksgiving is kinda just like fall,
Yeah.
you know?
Maybe Thanksgiving is like so yeah, you walk in and it's just a thick forest of colors, autumn colors of all kinds. And you walk through it and you get to a clearing. And there's like a massive, almost like Parthenon looking temple. And you get closer and it's not a temple, it's a table. And there's great big
Mm.
seats. And there's weird eldritch god level statues, and each one represents a totem of Thanksgiving. The racist uncle, the cousin coming back from college, the mom who's overworked, the dad who doesn't care and is just watching football, the little one who just wants pie, like the like kind of like the cave in Shazam and the seven deadly sins, the totems of Thanksgiving, and in the middle of it is the cornucopia, all the treats and stuff. Like that's the realm of Thanksgiving. I wonder if there's a version of this movie where instead of the Easter Bunny, they bring back like Uncle Sam. That's the one from the firecracker world because it's a guy wearing
Yeah.
red and has a beard. He's like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, take him back. I don't know. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. It's a good little film,
Hmm, hmm.
all in all. Um, I only have 1 page of notes on it, which is
I'm
unusual for
surprised you got a page at
so
all. To be completely
it
honest with you.
we've talked about most of it. The only thing I
Hmm,
haven't really mentioned is, like, uh, it starts with Sally's theme, like, the music starts with Sally's theme,
hmm.
and I thought that was an interesting choice because kinda as we discussed, she doesn't do anything that affects anything
Not really.
in this film,
Nope.
and I think they're trying to paint it as if she's kinda like the conscience or maybe the heart of the film. And if you were gonna do that, she needs to have actions with
Yeah,
consequences.
I
Like
think so I think you're right. I think she's supposed to be the conscience, and I think they don't do that sufficiently. I think if you were to play devil's advocate and fully argue in favor of her and her inclusion in the movie, I think she is us. She is
Mhm.
the audience watching this and knowing this isn't a good idea. Like the older you get, like when you're a kid, and even now, like it's just fun to watch the skeleton take over Christmas. But you realize like this isn't right. You know, this is something you don't understand. This is outside of your area, and like because so often, like there's the negative version of this is that she's just stalking Jack. But there's also a perspective that like during the opening music sequence during the town hall meeting, there's multiple moments just showing her sneaking around and showing her watching. And I feel like that's us watching the situation because she's separate. She's not a part of things very often. She doesn't have any other
No.
friends. Like, and again, these are all examples of they didn't really give this character. They didn't do this character right. But at the same time, it's like this is us in this movie,
That's
not
a
really being a
really
part of it.
yeah, I think that's a good point. And that is probably why 'cause I don't know, you connect with her pretty early on, or at least I did. Like, they create this sympathetic situation with her where she's kind of like a twist on the princess locked in a tower trope, right?
Yeah.
She escapes on her own plenty of times. but it's you feel bad for her situation a little bit. Like, you shouldn't have to be locked away. You
Mhm.
should have the freedom to go do what you want to do. Um, which I don't know. I feel like again, I feel like Sally's story contrasts sharply with Jack's in a way that I don't know if it makes sense because her story is all about freedom and doing what you want to do. And his story is about, okay, maybe not that thing. Try a different thing. Stick to what you're good at. Don't leave the boundaries of
Mhm.
your expectations. And she, being the one seeking freedom, tells him to reel it in because it's going to be bad because she has a premonition. Not even because she thinks it's a bad idea. She just had a premonition and
Mhm.
that told her that it was a bad idea and she believed it. Like, I don't know. Back to your point though about her being like sort of a proxy for the audience, I can see that quite
Mhm.
well actually. And I think that's why people probably connect with her,
Mhm.
even though she doesn't actually do much in the film itself. We sympathize with her and then we also sort of like have her perspective on the story as well.
Mhm. Well, I think there's some more fun, ridiculous assumptions we can make given what we are shown in the movie as to how some of these things could then maybe make more sense. Because, okay, so she has the vision, right? Sorry. She has the vision. Christmas is going to be a disaster. And the whole thing is, hey, don't, like you said, Jack's story is don't go outside of your area. Do what you do. What they do is scare people on Halloween during the Jack Christmas montage, and then after, it is established, I think, very blatantly, this is a world that not only believes in Santa Claus, but has no issues just acknowledging it and interacting with him. They know of him. And Jack is shot down because he's doing what Santa Claus is doing. And he's surprised by that, which says to me that Halloween in this world is like the purge, which is they allow and accept and acknowledge that on Halloween, monsters interact with this world and go ham, and it's just accepted. Because otherwise, why would Sally have that vision? Monsters going into that world and people fighting back. Oh no. It's like, dude, you did this a month and a half ago and it wasn't an issue. So again, I'm making assumptions, I'm making leaps, but I'm working with the
Mhm.
pieces you've given me, movie. And I think, to an extent, that's kind of fun. That this world is just like, 31st, lock your doors, because the guy with the axe in his head is going to be walking around, and the werewolf is going to be jumping up and down in his flannel. Just like, everyone be ready. Here come the vampires. Like, I think that's kind of fun because otherwise it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think that makes sense just in terms of like we don't really have like a mythos. Well, I mean, there's like a mythos around Halloween, but there's not really like a set creature that
Right.
like haunts Halloween. It's kind of like a variety of spooky
Mm-hmm.
monsters. Um, so for the citizens of Halloween Town to make consistent visits every year, that would create a world that has a more concrete understanding of what they're getting themselves into every year. And you're right, like, given that the parents don't freak out about the fact that Santa Claus was just in the room, like, they accept the holiday people,
Mm-hmm.
existence, right? And so they just accept the fact that the Halloween creatures show up and
Just do their thing.
sex stuff, apparently, or
Yeah,
put bats and spiders everywhere, like
I guess. I don't know. I would love to think it's a version of what Jack did on Christmas, just on Halloween. Because honestly, that sequence as well is fantastic. I love the creepy monster toys and how they terrorize the children. The part where they cut back and the snake is eating the tree. And that little boy is just screaming, and his little claymation hands are just shaking. But he's standing in the like. It's so funny. It's just it's perfectly hilarious. And just all of
I think
them.
the first time I watched this film, I was distressed by that sequence.
I'm sure you were.
They're actually ruining Christmas. This
They're
is
ruining
terrible.
Christmas, Mom. Oh no. I think it's funny. I do as well. Unless you have like anything else specifically to discuss, I have wondered about this for years. What it would be if he found if he was intrigued by one of the other doors, or if it was one of the other doors that was intrigued with Christmas. Like, what's the Easter Bunny do on Christmas? What's the Cupid do on Christmas? It's just all these different ways to mix and match.
Like, imagine if it was like the leprechauns from St. Patrick's Day trying to do Christmas.
Gold, gold for everybody.
Yeah. There would just be like green everywhere and like rainbows.
Yeah. Can you imagine like in a chimney, the fire goes out and a rainbow shoots down, and then a slightly drunk little guy with a red beard and a green hat, because he's drinking beer, he's got to be, and he comes around and he's like, "Hey kids, here's a gold piece for you," and he like flicks like and they get like solid gold coins, and the parents walk out, it's like, "Hey, what did Santa bring you?" He's like, "The fuck? Cash? What?" Like, that'd be so funny.
Santa brought me this little man.
It's like, is this an elf? Like, hey, watch it, buddy. I'm a leprechaun. That's good. That's good stuff. I did write a little short Christmas like fan fiction. I don't know if it's fan fiction when it's Christmas, of like Christmas being overturned because the leprechaun was jealous and was an undercover elf. I don't know if that exists in the world. I hope it doesn't.
You've written that?
In my head. I didn't like write it down.
Okay.
I just thought of it as like a concept of like this like Christmas is falling apart like it always does in every single story and movie ever about Christmas, and it's like clearly sabotage. Like, what's going on? Who could it be? Oh, it was Danny the elf. But Danny the elf, what? Danny's not even an elf. It's the leprechaun. Dun dun dun. I don't know.
Whenever I think of leprechauns, I always think of this book I picked up in the library, and it was out of that same series. It's like, our substitute teacher is a werewolf. I don't remember what it was. But it was like a whole thing. It was like very serialized stories. Like, they were separate individual stuff, but it had mostly the same kids every time. And it was like it was at a perfectly normal high school, and they would just like insert a magical creature, and the kids would have to deal with that.
Who was the leprechaun? Bus driver?
Gym teacher.
Gym teacher, of course. That makes sense.
And he was actually like kind of violent. And they had like the way that they had to get rid of him was he had to look them in the eyes.
Ew.
If you look them in the eyes, then they have to leave.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't make the lore.
Right, of course.
But like they spent the whole time talking about how he would look at like kind of like at their nose or like their forehead, and so they had to like find a way to actually make eye contact. I didn't read a lot of that series after that, but I did steal the leprechaun's trick, and now when I have a hard time making eye contact, I just look at people's like foreheads or noses.
Think they would typically refer to that as neurodivergence, but whatever. If you want to say it's a leprechaun trick, that's also fine. I don't think it helps the argument against neurodivergence to call it the leprechaun trick, but I am not judging. I just want to make that clear.
I didn't know about neurodivergence when I was a kid.
It sounds that just sounds like anxiety. I'm uncomfortable looking at people's eyes. Like, okay, what do you think that means? I think that means I learned a trick from a leprechaun. It's like, I don't think so, but all right, that's fine.
I learned a lot from my books, man. You don't discount them.
Fair enough. Yeah, I want to see the version of this where the leprechaun takes over Christmas. I think that'd be super fun. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
On that note, Jack's like hyperfixation on this screamed neurodivergent to me.
Of course.
Like, yeah, and I know it's just the character being like quirky and charming, but like the dude found something he liked, was thrilled by it, and then just fell into a depressive slump when he couldn't actively participate. So
yeah. And you know he's gonna try it again with different holidays. You just know it. I think it'd be awesome if he did 4th of July. Like, they make fireworks that go up, and kind of like Gandalf's, they turn into different fire monsters that come around and terrorize everybody. There's like,
I also thought of fireworks, but I was like, did they just like explode body parts in the
ew,
sky?
Mac, no, no, this is a cartoon. Ew, like, what are you imagining? Like a corpse with a rocket in the back and it just goes up and then pop like a balloon?
I mean, there would be actual like fire, but like yeah,
Disgusting.
raining body parts.
See, no, see, I was imagining like it goes up and there's like a big explosion of light, and then there's like a swarm of bats, and then one goes up
No,
and it pops and it's like ghosts flying around. You're like, no,
like
cadavers.
there's a small object shot into the sky, it explodes. There's
Oh,
firework stuff, and then there are fingers falling down around you.
oh my god, awful, absolutely awful. That's
I
terrifying.
mean, one kid got a shrunken head for Christmas,
Fair.
so this feels pretty feasible. All
All
right.
right, all right, all right, all right. I'll give you that. I do think that's a little different than if it was raining shrunken heads. Jack didn't walk up to the chimneys and just start pouring down body parts like,
Would have been
nasty.
faster, you know.
Well, yeah, he does start just throwing stuff down the chimney, but we don't see it specifically be body parts. But anyway, there's got to be something else about this movie that's interesting to discuss. Oh, I did try to think about this as well from a different perspective. It's really fun to watch Jack go to Christmas Town and see everything and be in awe and wonder. But I did think about the opposite. And I tried to take away the whimsy and take away the charm and the familiarity with Jack. And so I just tried to think if I just watched Polar Express, just as Polar Express is Polar Express. And then we get up to the point where like they put the tree topper on and the elves and the children are having fun. And then they look over to the corner and there's just a bony skeleton man running around on the walls and the ceilings and like taking his head off and doing backflips, and I'm like, holy shit, this is terrifying. Like the idea of a Halloween monster just popping up in a Christmas town to fuck shit up, that is truly terrifying. And
It actually would be quite scary. I can
right?
imagine. Yeah.
Ugh, like imagine like just the most whimsical, charming Christmas town you can think of, and then it's like death from Puss in Boots' Last Wish just popping up here or there in the corner. It's just a massive contrast to the charm and wonder of it all. Ugh, terrifying, and I loved it. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It'd be weird.
It's so weird. I want like a not a sequel or necessarily a spin-off, like a spin-off in spirit. I want a Halloween versus Christmas movie. I want classic Halloween monsters versus like the Christmas kind of characters. You don't really see any in this movie. It's really just Santa and the elves. But I want skeleton, werewolf, Frankenstein, ghost, invisible man, vampire, swamp monsters, clown versus a giant gingerbread man, the Nutcrackers, a snowman, Jack Frost, a tree guy, like a Christmas tree guy, the elves, maybe elves stacked on top of elves, and then like the reindeer herder or something, or just the reindeer in general, like a reindeer
Reindeer
minotaur.
themselves,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, like I want Christmas versus Halloween, and it would be dope as heck. I got like nothing
Yeah.
else for this
I
movie. It's
don't
just
know.
it's just fun.
I don't really have a desire to see like the icons of Halloween and Christmas deck it out in a boxing ring, but
Well, I was thinking more of an
hey,
arena,
man.
or like
I mean, still,
or
like,
or a poor town that just got unlucky.
uh,
Yeah, that's about it.
yeah,
Unless you have
that's kind
anything
of
else,
it. That's all
like
we got.
I mean, it's a fun, charming movie, a classic, a holiday staple,
Mhm.
claymation. I don't know, great example of
Truly
claymation.
unique. Like
True,
it,
yeah,
there's
aesthetically
nothing
fun.
like it out there. It's iconic.
Yeah,
I think it's a perfect film for like moving between seasons, like when you're kind of getting to the end of the Halloween season, moving into like the Christmas slash Thanksgiving
yeah,
season.
for
Like
sure.
I think it's good. I don't know that it's ever going to be one of my favorites,
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
but I
I
mean, so
I
much of it is good,
Yeah, I
right?
think even though there's a lot that's good, I don't really think you could take a genuine critical eye to this. This is one of those movies
Mhm,
where like I would not expect to see 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I
mhm,
understand it's not
mhm.
100%, but what I would wonder though is what at the same time why it's not. Who watched this movie and doesn't understand this is not supposed to be like you're not supposed to necessarily look at this critically. Do you have fun? Is it enjoyable? No? Okay, I guess you're just a cold dead person. Like I struggle to understand why you wouldn't just think, yeah, I mean it does what it does and it's fun. Certified fresh, done kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I would be the kind of person to give this like a 4 out of 5 stars
Yeah.
because maybe depending, if it weren't so popular, I might slide down to a 3 out of 5
Mhm.
just because, like, I don't wanna be the person that hates on it, and I'm not saying this is necessarily peer pressure getting the better of me, it's just, like, people clearly really love this film,
Mhm.
and I think it's good enough and interesting enough to deserve that affection, and I don't wanna be the person that throws a wrench in that enjoyment.
Mhm.
So, it's a good enough film for me to give it 4
Yeah.
stars. That
But
said, on my own, with no outside influence, I'm like, "This is cute, unique, and original," but I can't say that I fully get it
mhm.
or that I think it's written that well, and so
Yeah.
I'd probably deck it a little
I
bit.
think I think in this case as well, Rotten Tomatoes is the perfect example because I'm not saying that everyone should love this movie. Audience score, personal preference, totally understand why that wouldn't be everyone's cup of tea. But if you were to look at this critically, I would
Mm,
wonder why you're looking at this critically because
sure.
it's clearly not
Thinking about
awful.
intent,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Like, and I'm
Yeah.
also like, it's like when you start looking at this and you're trying to grade it on a scale of 1 to 100, and you're like, yeah, probably like mid to high 80s. It's like, okay, well, explain that 15%. It's like, well, it's kind of hard to because it's not that kind of movie. Like the things we want to
Mhm.
remove or the things we want to add. It's not that kind of film. So I look at this particular kind of movie as like, is it good or is it bad? We can discuss and explore things, and yeah, personal preference, aesthetic preference. Maybe you don't like the song, maybe you don't like the creepy aesthetic. That's fine. But if you're a critic and you're like, is it enjoyable? Is it fun to watch? Or is it bad and just awful? Clearly, they don't do like the claymation well or whatever. I would just be like, it clearly checks the important boxes kind of thing.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm making
I
sense or
feel
if
like
I'm
this
rambling.
movie when you're looking at a movie critically, like, and this is something that I've kind of come to a conclusion recently about, but I think a good philosophy is to think about what the intent was from the creator
Yes,
when they
yes,
created it and whether or not the movie lives up to its full potential.
yes.
And a movie living up to its own full potential is is a criteria entirely established by the movie itself regardless of other movies. So it's not like saying this is the best movie ever. It's just saying with the premise of the movie that we have and the resources with which the people had to make the movie, did it become the best thing that it could become?
Mm,
And I feel like this movie is very close to that, if not there.
mm,
Like it's very unique. It accomplishes the vibes they were clearly going for. It has a very strong presence. It has an interesting story, if not the best written story. So like I do think you could clean up the writing without messing with those other goals, but I
mm.
think the other goals that it did achieve were more of a priority for its creators. And therefore it does fulfill a little bit more of its potential by focusing on those things rather than on the story.
I think that's totally fair. Tis a whale.
Tis a whale.
Tis a whale.
A spooky skeleton whale.
Yeah, spooky, scary whale. But cool, on to the next real marathon. And this one's gonna be fun. I'm excited for this next one.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a little more lighthearted, audience members who are still here somehow. It's a little less heavy than.
Somebody's here.
Yeah. Well, wait a
That's
minute.
gonna be our closer
Wait a
from here on
minute.
out. Nobody's
Wait
here
a
anymore, so
wait
we're
a
out.
minute. Wait a minute. We did it again.
Mm,
The one we're about to watch is more lighthearted and fun. The
yeah.
episode that'll go up next week is so not lighthearted and fun because it's Terminator. I was totally wrong. Totally wrong. We're going into the Terminator franchise. Super heavy, super violent, super crazy. We're going to start watching Night of the Museum. So look out for that January 1st.
Start your new year right.
Yeah. Woo! All right. Anyway, well, have a great. Well, I think actually it's the last 3 weeks of December. I think. Yeah, it's the last 3 weeks. So not January 1st.
January.
Yeah, like it'll be because Terminator will go through November and the first weeks of December, and then the last weeks of December will be Night at the Museum. But
Weren't
yeah.
we doing the Grinches?
Oh shit! You're right. I forgot. See, we don't know what we're doing. It will be January. We're doing the Grinches for Christmas.
Yeah.
I got there. We figured it out. It's great. Terminator. We're all over the place. Thanks for listening. Have a great Halloween. Bye.
Bye, friends.